Hello and welcome back to the Rainbow Hair Files. So for today's video, if you cannot see the title, I'm going to be talking about 4 mistakes that I personally made with Alathea's hair and that I've noticed other people make in their natural hair journey, their curl journey, the whatever journey that they are on with their hair. And we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about the things that you should be doing instead of those 4 mistakes. So let's get started. So the first mistake that I know we made, or I guess I made with Alathea's hair, and that I've noticed other people doing, is that they do not have a set routine. And what I mean by that is they do not have a routine of what they do when they wash their hair. They do not have a routine of when they style their hair. They do not have a routine of what kind of hairstyles they're gonna do, whether that's more wash and go or more protective styles. And depending on which one of those you choose as far as what you're gonna do more of, you then have to have different routines for both to keep your hair healthy while you have those styles and whatever styles you're doing. And I know when I first started my journey learning Alethea's hair, I brushed it whenever I wanted to style it, and I didn't have any kind of routine as far as when I would wash her hair and how I would style it after washing her hair, and I wouldn't have any kind of like product routine as far as like I use this first and then the end. Like I didn't have any of that set because I didn't know any better. I'm just gonna say that I didn't know what would work for her hair. I didn't know what I was doing was not working for her hair. Yeah. So I'm just gonna tell you what I do with Alethea's hair, and then kind of explain why, in the hopes that maybe that will explain to you why having a routine is so important. So like I said, when I first started kind of doing her hair more, when she actually grew hair enough to be able to do stuff with it, the only times I would style it, or the only times I would do anything with it, is when we were like going somewhere and I actually wanted to do some kind of style with it, which was not very often. And so any other time than that, it was just in its natural state, and I wasn't detangling it that often. I wasn't using any kind of protection over her hair when she would like go to sleep and take naps and stuff, and so obviously she'd just be sleeping on her hair and it would be getting matted. So then every time I would go to detangle it, I was like ripping out all of her hair. I definitely was not using the right kind of products, which I will get into next. But I was barely using any products at all, actually, on her. I would maybe use a little bit of like an oil mixture with a little bit of leave-in conditioner, but that was it. And it wasn't leave-in conditioner that I had researched that was going to work for her. It was just whatever my husband had and was using at the time. And so there was no thought put into it, and there was no research put into it, because I didn't realize that I would have to do something different for her than my husband does for his, if that makes sense. Like, I figured everything was the same, and it is definitely not. And I definitely did not have any kind of routine when it came to washing her hair either. Like, I don't remember when I would, as far as how long the break would be in between. But I definitely did not have like, okay, every week or every 2 weeks or every this day. It was just kind of whenever. And I think for a little while I was going like almost like a month without washing her hair, because at the time that's what I was doing with mine. I was trying to oil train, that's what I'm coining that term as for myself, my hair, because my hair does get oily pretty fast. And so I was washing my hair less often back then in the hopes that it wouldn't get oily as fast, and it did actually work. I would just kind of wash it whenever I was going out somewhere, which just happened to me at that point in my life maybe once a month. And so I wouldn't wash it but once a month. And so I started doing that with her hair, thinking that once again everybody's hair was the same and I could do whatever works for my hair to keep it healthy is going to work for her. Not the case. And so yeah, I wasn't washing her hair enough, and I didn't have any kind of set routine as far as like exactly every month or something. It was just whenever. So what we do now is the complete opposite of that. So our routine depends on the style that I have done in her hair and the styles that I'm planning on doing in her hair. So if I am doing more wash and go styles that month, if I'm leaving her hair down, then I will wash her hair every week and a half. If I have it in a protective style, I'll wash it like every 2 weeks. And honestly, I might alternate between co-washing it and then full washing it when it's in a protective style. So in a month, I'll wash it like twice, but once will just be with conditioner, co-washing, and the other time will be with shampoo and conditioner. And then as far as styling, if we are doing a protective style, then I do that after she gets out of the bath and we've washed her hair, so that I'm styling clean hair. And if I'm doing a wash and go hairstyle, I oftentimes will wash her hair before I do the style, especially if it's coming out of a protective style and I'm, doing whatever style after that as far as a wash and go. But if it's just I'm refreshing her hair, then it doesn't have to be after I've washed it. It can just be whenever I feel like it needs to be detangled. And I will use the products that we use, which, like I said, I'm going to get into, so I'm not going to talk about that at this point. But I'll use whatever products we're going to use for that specific style, and detangle it and style it. If I'm doing a wash and go, then I will possibly finger coil or finger curl, whatever you want to call it, or use my comb to define the curls. Something to where it's going to aid in it not getting as tangled throughout however long she's wearing that style for. And also she wears a, I don't even know what they're called. Maybe I have one out here. I probably don't. We call it a hair, what do we call them? Head wrap. We call them head wraps.
Yes.
I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. But it's, I think my husband actually bought it to kind of be a mask, like it's like you put it over your head and then like you lift it up and it's like this whole cylinder thing made of fabric, but we don't use it for that for her. We put it over all of her hair, and we actually use that regardless of whether she has a protective style or a wash and go style in, but she sleeps with that and she has her quiet time with that on her hair, so that as she's rolling around and moving during her sleep, it's not matting up and knotting up her hair, it's keeping it protected. So yeah, like I said, I hope that kind of explains why a routine is so important, because the health of her hair now versus back then when I didn't have a routine is like complete 180. So yeah, a routine is definitely important. Now, like I was saying, I'm gonna talk about products, and it kind of ties into the whole routine. Using the wrong products, and not just using the wrong products, but using the products in a wrong order, is another mistake that we made and that I see other people making. So the most important thing for you to learn what products are going to work for your hair is learning the porosity of your hair. I say go on a huge Google deep dive to learn more about it, because there are so many levels to porosity as far as where you can be at on it. For example, I have high porosity hair. It doesn't take much for my hair to get wet, and it doesn't take much for it to be moisturized either. Like, I can just kind of wash it with the products I use and it's good. Whereas my husband's hair is like the complete opposite of that. It takes a lot for it to get wet, and it needs a lot of heavy cream-based moisturizing products to help it stay moisturized and healthy. And so it's extremely important for you to learn the porosity of your hair so that you can learn the products that are going to work for it. Because like I said, if you have low porosity hair, you are going to need thicker, cream-based, butter-based products that are going to really soak into your hair. And you're going to need to use those types of heavy products when you wash your hair and when you go to detangle your hair. And after you have done that, you need to use some kind of oil on the hair, not necessarily on the scalp. My husband doesn't use any kind of oil on his scalp because he said it really irritates him. It makes it feel drier and like itchy faster. Some people don't have that issue, so again, it could be a little bit of trial and error for you as far as learning the products that are going to work for you. But you do need to use oil on the actual hair itself because that is going to lock in the moisture. And that is kind of for everybody, but especially if you have low porosity and more of, I'm just going to say, like afro type coils, then you're going to need to do that so that your hair stays moisturized and locks in that moisture. Now, like I said, there is a wrong order to products that you can do as well. Not just using the wrong products, but if you don't use them in the right order, that can also be a hindrance on your hair's health. For example, you need to use any leave-in conditioner before you use any kind of gel, because you need to moisturize it and get those curls defined before you set it with the gel. Because if you try to use the gel first, it's just not gonna soak in at first. One really big tip that I learned from following so many people on Instagram, like I feel like if you're gonna do any kind of hair journey, Instagram is one way to learn a lot. Like I have learned so much about Alathea's hair just from following people on there. If you don't know whether or not your products are going to mix well, then take some of the products that you're going to use in your hand and just go like this. And if it becomes lumpy, it's not going to work. And you're going to end up with those lumps in your hair and it's not going to look good. Whereas if it mixes nicely and combines on your hand, then you'll know that it's going to work for your hair. And like I said, definitely for your hair type, your curl type, your porosity type, your everything type, it's going to be different products. So do your research on that as far as the heaviness of products and stuff that you need, and then learn how to put them in the right order. And it's going to make a world of difference. My next mistake that, like I keep saying, I made and I see other people making is not doing protective styles. I do not want this to come across like, oh, you can only do protective styles and that's the only way your hair is going to be healthy, and because that's not the case. It's not the case at all. But I do believe that doing no protective styles like ever is not going to help your hair. Does that make sense? You need to at least do a protective style like every now and then, because you need to leave your hair alone, essentially, to let it grow, especially if that is your goal. Obviously, if your goal is, you don't really care about the length of your hair, you just want the health of your hair, then make sure that you keep your hair moisturized and you take care of the scalp and everything. But if your goal is length, then protective styles are going to give you that, because you're leaving your hair alone for however long you leave in that style. And when you leave hair alone, it grows. So it's not getting tangled, so then the next time you do a style, you're not going to be ripping out any hair and causing damage. It's being left alone, and so there's no manipulation to it, and so it has time to grow. And yeah, I will always tell people to at least try doing protective styles, even if like you just do it through a season. Like I know certain people will do protective styles just during the summer and then rock their natural hair wash and go styles every other season. But they for the summer they'll have 2 or 3 different protective styles that entire season, and then they'll take them out and switch to doing wash and go styles. If you want to do that, that'll work. But like doing it every now and then is definitely going to help your hair to just kind of relax a little bit and have some time to grow. So if that's your goal, then I definitely recommend doing those. The last one I actually briefly touched on in my last point is not taking care of the scalp and not properly cleaning the scalp. This kind of goes for everybody, whether you have curly hair, straight hair, you have super coily hair, whether you have low porosity hair, it doesn't matter what your hair type is, your curl type is, your anything type is when it comes to your hair. Keeping your scalp clean and healthy is going to give your hair what it needs to be clean and healthy and to grow and to do whatever it needs to do. I recommend getting a scalp shampoo brush, which I talk about in a lot of videos, but definitely I talked about it in my go-to products video. I'll link that down below. While you wash your hair, do not use your fingernails, because that's just going to inflame the hair or inflame the scalp and irritate the scalp. Whereas if you use your fingertips or your knuckles or a scalp brush, a scalp shampoo brush, you're actually going to move that dirt and shake the dirt off of your scalp, so then you can wash it out, and then your scalp is actually getting clean. So yeah, like I said, you definitely make sure that you are cleaning the scalp, because a clean scalp is going to lead to a healthy scalp. I also recommend, if you are somebody who it works for you, like I said, my husband does not use oil on his scalp because it irritates him more. But if you do some trial and error and you find that oil does not bother your scalp, then use oil a lot more often, especially when doing certain hairstyles. Put the oil directly on the scalp, because it's going to keep it moisturized, and so then it's not going to be pulling when it's in a certain style, and then it's going to reduce breakage. And yeah, those are my mistakes and my tips on how to, I guess, fix those mistakes, which sounds terrible, but those are the things I know that we did not do for Alethea's hair and that we do now, and that has made a world of difference. I hope that you found it useful and that you enjoyed this video. Alethea wants to say something, I'm sure.
Bye.
Goodbye. We will see you in the next video.